Hey guys, my name is Nova, this is Film Express, and I almost can't believe I'm here doing this today. I'm here talking about the cinematic event of the decade. We're going to be reviewing Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. Guys, moments like this come few and far between in a person's lifetime. All the hype you've heard about this movie is true. Dune Part 2 is among the most finely crafted, epic blockbusters ever made in the history of film. I've seen the movie twice now, and I've been sitting with my thoughts for a few days now, trying to just kind of make sense of how I would review this. I'm not going to even mince words right off the bat. It is a 5-star film to me. Some of you may know I'm super critical of like big budget Hollywood film. It's very rare for me to love a sci-fi franchise like this, like Dune. But Dune Part 1 was a great film. I wouldn't call it flawless, but I really enjoyed that film, and I love how Denis builds his world, and I love how he tells his stories, and I love the way he kind of flexes on us with his filmmaking craft. But needless to say, here in Dune 2, everything is stepped up to the max. This is like maximalist filmmaking on a grand scale. Like, we've never seen anything like this before. A lot of people have been saying over the past little while that Denis Villeneuve's style is kind of like cold, and it's very hard to like get attached to the characters. It's kind of like emotionless. I've always disagreed with this take personally, but I mean, here in Dune 2, he's here to prove all the allegations wrong. Dune 2 is an incredibly emotional piece of work. I felt things, you know, throughout this whole film. I can't even say that about any of the big blockbusters that have come out in the past few years, or you know what, if ever. You know, I'm particularly harsh on a film like Star Wars. I never felt anything when Darth Vader is revealed as Luke's father or anything like that. But here in the third act, they keep piling on more twists and turns, which kind of elevates the narrative stakes constantly throughout the film. There were times where I was holding my breath, I was at the edge of my seat, my palms were sweaty. It got a rise out of me, and it got emotions out of me, which is so rare for films these days. And you know what, a lot of that credit goes to Frank Herbert's story with Dune. But as we all know, a film adaptation, there's a lot of changes that happen, and Denis Villeneuve has made a lot of changes to the story, and he's made the story, which many have said to be the like unadaptable novel, he's made it digestible, you know. And in my opinion, it's way better than David Lynch's Dune film, like no contest, and it's way better than any other sci-fi film I've seen in a very long time. There are maybe 4 or 5 action sequences in this film, and every single one of them is like event attraction level hype. You know, it's grandiose filmmaking. The sheer scale and scope of every action scene is very well considered, and it takes the eye of a visionary filmmaker to achieve something like this. It's those moments where you're watching a film, and then the images, the sound, the music, everything comes together with the performances to give you something that transports you to another world. And I fully felt that multiple times here when I was watching Dune 2. There's the Gaiety Prime sequence, which is now probably the most famous sequence of the film. It's entirely in black and white infrared cinematography, but the kicker here is that the scene is on a planet where there's a black sun, and that black and white monochromatic lighting is actually the lighting from the sun. It's not like a flashback where the scene is being told in black and white for no reason. It's actually the lighting of that planet. And there's a moment where you see Stellan Skarsgård character, the Baron, he goes from like inside to outside where the sun is, and you see the colors kind of just completely shift from his face to that monochromatic scaling. It was beautiful. I've never seen anything like that. It adds to the emotions of that scene, and it's like a gladiator coliseum where Austin Butler's character, and we'll get to him in a second, he goes crazy in that scene, and it's one of the most visceral action scenes in a very long time. On that scale, reminds me of something like Gladiator or Ben-Hur or Spartacus, but in my opinion, much better, and in IMAX it is crazy to behold. A lot of these action sequences are fully driven by Hans Zimmer's score and his incredible music, but there is one scene near the end. It's an epic duel, I would say, where the music is completely stripped out. You don't hear a single note. It's all just sound effects and the sound of the fight. It's so immersive. It fully took me there, and you know what, it's one of those moments where my palms were so sweaty while I was watching the film. Truly some of the more epic fight choreography as well. You know, it's a fight where there's a lot on the line emotionally for the characters, for the world, and the fight matches that intensity. You know, there's a lot of moments in this film where we see things that were foreshadowed in Dune Part 1 finally come full circle. There's one sequence where Paul Atreides, Timothée Chalamet's character, is having a vision of a battle sequence where he's fighting a bunch of people in like a one take shot. That shot now comes back full circle in Dune Part 2 with Chani, Zendaya's character. I let out a gasp when it happened, when I connected those dots. I thought it was brilliant storytelling, and it finally came full circle, as well as a scene in the first film where Paul is training with Halleck, Josh Brolin's character. That also comes full circle here in the second film, and it's masterfully done, but it's never over the top. It's never on the nose. It's very subtle. You have to tune into it. You have to be in tune with the narrative to pick something like that out. You know what? It's great that Dune 1 did all the world building and set up all the rules of the world, because Dune 2 hits the ground running, and it's almost 3 hours long, and in that time I never felt like my time was being wasted. There was not a single bit of filler. It is constantly moving forward at a fast pace. You have a revenge tale, you have a love story, you have a political clash of gargantuan scale, you have this really rich, religious angle to the story as well, and all these come together, and it's just gripping, entertaining. It's pure cinema in every way. It's reminiscent of films like Lawrence of Arabia and films of that scale, and I think we're gonna remember Dune 2 for years and years to come as a film of that caliber. The film touches upon many themes. It touches upon the burden of prophecy and how there's a sense of dread and a sense of the unknown that comes along with it. Paul's consistently being told that there's a prophecy where he's supposed to be the leader, and everyone doubts him. He doubts himself, and it obviously makes us doubt it, and it's just so interesting to see how that unfolds within the story. It almost reminds me of The Matrix in a way. It also touches upon the weight of being a messiah and being a religious figure, and how you can almost turn ambivalent to something like that. We see Paul kind of deflect these notions that he might be the Messiah, but he ends up fully understanding the weight of his power. And kudos to Timothée Chalamet, because he gives such a physical performance here. His physicality completely transforms in the second half of the film when he does realize his power. It almost reminds me in a way of Al Pacino's performance in The Godfather, where his body language fully changed by the second film, because he's committed a lot of like very sinful acts. So by the time the second film comes around, he's a lot more stoic. Paul Atreides' transformation was very reminiscent of that, and I thought that was brilliant as well. There's a scene near the end where Timothy's just commanding every single scene in the last 30-40 minutes, and it's incredible. It's the first time where I've considered him to be worthy of all the hype. The whole story is just constant thrills, and it's just constant character decisions impacting the story, and there's constant curveballs being thrown at the characters, and they have to constantly adapt. For me, that's some of the most natural storytelling I've seen in years. To me, this is the best film of the 2020s, because this is a script that's approached with character agency in mind. The narrative is consistently shape-shifting and morphing to what the characters do. That to me is a good story. You might have heard the hype around Austin Butler. He's given what many people have called one of the greatest villain performances in a very, very long time, reminiscent of Heath Ledger's The Joker, reminiscent of Javier Bardem's Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. The character does not get that much time. He's introduced about an hour in, but with that little amount of screen time, Austin Butler has left such a huge impression. His take on that character is just so nuanced and so interesting. It's always kind of demanding you to analyze his body language and his little facial motions, because it's very, very interesting. It reminds me a lot of Heath Ledger's Joker. And I think if the character, just like the Joker's character, was introduced at the beginning of the film, he would have been on that level. He's not quite there, but I can see why he's in that conversation. This is a masterful villain. He's built up incredibly, and the stakes are very, very obvious every time he's around. He's a very, very clear threat. To me, that's great storytelling. That's just rule 101 on how to build a villain, and they executed that perfectly. This film is a visual spectacle. You have to see it in IMAX. If you can see it in 70mm, please go see it in 70mm. This film needs to be seen on the biggest screen possible. Every single frame here is it's like a buffet for the eyes. I can't even describe to you how meticulously everything is planned, obviously on a visual level. The lighting choices are incredible. The framing and compositions are incredible. The action scenes are framed in ways where you can always see what's happening. It's never quick cuts, very elegantly shot. I feel like we're going to be talking about the cinematography here for years and years to come, and all of this is all due to Greg Fraser. He's the legendary cinematographer of the 2020s. You know, Deakins was the master of the 90s and the 2000s, but now I think it's very clear that Greg Fraser is making a case to be one of the best in the game. You know, there's a lot of visual storytelling going on, and Denis Villeneuve has gone on record saying he doesn't really care about dialogue too much, which is crazy because the dialogue here is very, very good and very funny as well. But this is just a masterful showing of visual storytelling, all due to the fact that Denis Villeneuve and Greg Fraser have collaborated on very, very meticulous imagery that holds consistent from Dune 1 to Dune 2. Every shot tells a story. There's not a single shot that I would say was wasted, and I've seen it twice now. I was very, very critical the second time. Everything was meticulous. This is a legendary release. Dune 2 is like a monumental, historical release of a movie. I think everyone needs to go see this film. Go see this film twice if you can. You know, people have compared it to Empire Strikes Back. I can totally agree. People have compared it to The Two Towers. I can totally agree with that. It's on that level. In my opinion, Dune is better. Dune 2 is the better film. You know, with much deliberation, I say that it's in my top 100 movies now. It's one of the greatest sequels I've ever seen. It might not exactly be a flawless film, but it's as close to flawless as we can get. It's like a 9.7 out of 10. You know, it's so close. Go experience Hans Zimmer's amazing score. Go experience the incredible imagery, the incredible spectacle. This is a blockbuster of huge proportions. We all need to support this film so that Denis Villeneuve can finish his trilogy with Dune Messiah. We're about to witness what is potentially going to be the greatest blockbuster trilogy of all time, so he needs our support, guys. I just want to say I absolutely love Dune 2. I'm going to watch it as many times as I can, you know, and I just urge you all to go check it out. Please let me know what you thought of Dune 2. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think it was better than the first one or not? Talk about it. Let's talk about Austin Butler's performance. Let's talk about the Black Sun sequence. Let's have a discussion, guys. My name's Nova. This is Film Express. It was my absolute pleasure to talk about Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.